Welcome to the Mormon News Roundup, your go-to source for the latest headlines and critical analysis on all things LDS.
Breaking news.
Join D-Vay's
Mormon News Roundup.
That's talent on loan from Kolob every Sunday and Monday night.
We will uncover the truth behind the news that matters most to the Mormon community.
This season on Sister Wives.
Cody and I are officially done.
Are you serious?
I'm not joking. Like, our marriage is over.
I just had a date with this guy, David.
Hi, baby.
We've already planned our second date. I'm just telling you that straight up.
Cody and I have officially said it's not working.
Really? This was not the way it was supposed to go.
What did I do to deserve this? What did I do wrong?
The property needs to be paid off.
I've actually thought about asking if he wants to buy me out, but we got to pay it off, and he's not talking to me about it, so I think I'm going to have to lawyer up.
Such a teenage drama.
All right. Do you remember that I have that house in Utah?
It's going to be healthy for Mary to live away.
You're like the idiot that got left behind. I'm not your wife anymore.
It's not divorce that sucks, it's marrying the wrong person.
What sucks is marrying the wrong person and not having the decency to tell her until 32 years later.
Civil war, total civil war.
I would like you to meet David.
Ta-da!
The guy that Christine is dating is going to be at this party.
I think we're meeting Christine's new boyfriend.
Oh, I don't know. I need to find a man. I'm not going to take sides. I'm not going to be in the ex-wives club. I'm not in the Cody and Robin club.
I'm having a hard time feeling like losing respect for you.
Robin, I can't even get it straight with you right now. I keep thinking that you and I could make this work. What about you and me?
We have had so many conversations where I've said, it's done, we're not compatible.
I didn't know we were having a fight here.
I wish I wouldn't have ever married her. Listen, it's confusing from day one.
That's
Bull.
Well,
that is so not fair to me. I would have rather you have told me, Cody, years ago.
blame yourself if I don't love you, okay?
In what ways are the secret lives of Mormon wives a fulfillment of trends that existed within and were prompted by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints over the last 2 decades? My name is Dr. Benjamin E. Park. I'm a scholar of American religion and author of the book American Zion, A New History of Mormonism. And while the LDS Church put out a statement distancing the Latter-day Saint experience from the TV series that premiered on Hulu this fall, much of that series is a result of trends that were prompted by the church itself. Let's dig in. By the way, this video was prompted by a story in the Washington Post about 2024 being the year of the Mormon women. I was very privileged to be interviewed for and was quoted in this piece. I strongly recommend reading it about the broader cultural context that the secret lives of Mormon wives represents. So come with me back in time to an era that is often referred to as the Mormon moment, a period that took place between about 2005 and 2012, when there was massive media attention on the Latter-day Saint tradition and its many cultural expressions, whether it be the Book of Mormon musical on Broadway or Mitt Romney's run for the presidency. This was a time where the LDS Church both had to adapt to the national spotlight and the new media age it portended, as well as the national media changing its perceptions and sometimes its stereotypes of a faith that has long been a focus of American obsession. But there are a few key elements or evolutions during this period that I think are particularly revealing and have long consequences to today. Just as a quick aside, I wanted to use this image, the Newsweek cover that announced the arrival of the Mormon moment, in my book, American Zion, A New History of Mormonism, but it would have cost several $1,000s to do so, so you're just enjoying it here. One of the key themes that came out of this era was Latter-day Saints like Russell Nelson urging church members, especially those of younger generations, to utilize the new technologies, especially social media, in order to share the gospel. But to share the gospel in a way that was not overtly proselytizing, sharing doctrines or scripture studies, but rather sharing your way of life. That being a Latter-day Saint means living in an upright, moral way that is conversant with modern-day technologies or style or indeed capitalism. And what happened was many young Latter-day Saints, especially women, took that charge and created social media personalities, blogs, other platforms that allowed them to be social media influencers. In a way, those early stage bloggers are the forerunners for mom talk, people who believe they are living their religion by example, just not direct proselytization. And indeed, the very idea of a Mormon identity was going through a transformation during this period. In response to feedback from a number of media consulting groups, the LDS Church launched their own media campaign called the I'm a Mormon campaign, back when Mormon wasn't a bad word, nor a victory for Satan, where they plastered Times Square in New York City, or buses across the nation, or commercials on TV and the internet that showed people from a wide variety of backgrounds performing different types of jobs or forms of education, and always ending, "and I'm a Mormon." It was meant to disrupt the homogeneous image of Mormons all being the same type of people, wearing the same things, and embracing the modern American idea of individual expression. It was a very powerful way to show that Mormons are Americans just like everyone else. But it also introduced the idea of diversity at a very practical level, where Latter-day Saints felt that, hey, I can embrace being different than other members of my community, which is going to allow them to diverge from common Mormon stereotypes. And it just so happens that right when Mormons are participating in these social forms of performance, embracing their diverse identities, and engaging in these materialistic and capitalistic forms of being American, along comes an American TV genre that captures those elements perfectly. The reality TV show genre, starting with it shows the confluence of all of these threads together, but you also see it in Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, these new shows about real estate developers in Utah, and then, of course, The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. So whenever you see the LDS Church or some of its members try to distance itself from the TV series The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, just remember that this show and its participants, especially their embrace of social media performance, their engagement with diverse identities that break the mold of traditional stereotypes, and their participation in a particular form of consumerism at the heart of the American experience, just remember that all of that was born out of the LDS Church itself.
This holiday season, be on the lookout for giving machines, a unique giving experience that makes donating to charity easier than ever. As easy as buying a soda or a candy bar. Camille Johnson, Relief Society General President, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, is joining us this morning to share more. Good morning.
It's nice to be with you.
Same to you, Camille. Let's start high level. What are giving machines?
Well, giving machines are part of the Light the World initiative with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They're in over 100 locations this year across 5 continents in 13 countries and 32 different states, but there's one there in Austin at the Hill Country Galleria. And it's a unique giving experience, an opportunity for people to give back to their neighbors there in Texas, but neighbors on the other side of the world. So rather than buying a soda or a candy bar from the vending machine, one steps up to the vending machine and has the opportunity to choose from a number of different items that will benefit nonprofits, those that are in Texas, but also those that provide services around the world. It's a way for us to give back to our community, to bless the lives of our neighbors.
Yes, absolutely. It's such a unique and easy way to give back to our neighbors in need.
Yes.
So what are some of the items for purchase in these giving machines?
Well, you'll see a goat or a beehive or perhaps pigs. You'll also see food products, nutritious meals for children, therapeutic food for children that are malnourished, soccer balls, school supplies, a feeding bowl. There's all sorts of choices that people can make. And these services or these products will benefit those that are most vulnerable, most in need, not only in your own community, but also around the world.
Yeah, and speaking to that, it is benefiting local and national charities. Can you share more about that?
Absolutely. So there in Texas, the Texas Children's Hospital will be blessed and benefited by people's purchases, as well as the Circle of Hope Community Center. And on an international level, there's international mentors, Catholic Relief Services, UNICEF, others that will bless the lives of people all over the world. This is an opportunity for us to address the needs of those that otherwise might not be met. And at a time and season where giving is so important, in the season of joy and hope, we hope that people will step up to the machines and feel like the world's small, that they have an opportunity to bless the lives of those that are close to them, but also those that live far away.
I love that. This seems like even a small donation can make a big impact. Can you share some of the reach from 2023?
Absolutely. So the options to purchase range between $7 and $300. And the impact last year was that $10 million worth of products were purchased to bless the lives of people everywhere. I'll give you a very specific example. A beehive was purchased. That went to a family in Africa. With the honey that was harvested from that beehive, that family was able to pay the fees for their children to attend school. So you see that a simple thing like purchasing a beehive has long-standing and far-reaching benefits and blessings for families everywhere.
Yes, definitely. And thank you for sharing that with us. Where can we go for more information?
Well, givingmachines.org is the place that you can go. And of course, we hope you'll join us at the Giving Machine there at the Hill Country Galleria.
Thanks, Camille, for joining us this morning on We Are Austin. We appreciate your time. Happy holidays.
Thank you, and to you too.
In church news today, this Thursday, December 19th. Church education is playing a role in preparing the world for the Savior's second coming. Elder D. Todd Christofferson of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles serves as chairman of the Executive Committee of the Church Board of Education. He recently told Church News he becomes energized with his contact and association with the young people of the church and sees the good they are doing in the world. Brigham Young University released its 2025 winter semester devotional lineup. 2 apostles, 4 general authorities or general officers of the church, and BYU head football coach Kalani Sitake will address the BYU student body during next semester. Celebrities are helping promote Like the World Giving Machines on social media. Several actors, athletes, and others have taken to social media to post photos, videos, or comment on the large vending-like machines that are used to choose items to donate to various charities in local communities or whose work blesses individuals around the world. In church news today, this Tuesday, December 17th. Since opening at the Joseph Smith Memorial Building in 2017, Light the World Giving Machines are now available in more than 100 locations worldwide. Church service missionaries recently shared their memories of the first year of the Giving Machines on Temple Square. The First Presidency released renderings this week for 5 temples, 4 in the United States and 1 in Mexico. They also announced the location for the second House of the Lord to be constructed in Buenos Aires, Argentina. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints donated funds, provided resources, and used its members to bless the lives of those in need around the world this year. In Peru, the church has continued to offer help to thousands of people in just the past few months. In church news today, this Monday, December 16th. In a new video, Elder D. Todd Christofferson of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles and Elder Clark G. Gilbert, a General Authority 70 and the Commissioner of Church Education, discussed the increasing numbers of youth and young adults enrolling in the church's academic institutions. Elder Christofferson challenges common narratives, saying the Spirit is working in today's youth. Family Search's Ordinances Ready tool is hastening and simplifying temple and family history work. Elder Kevin S. Hamilton and Elder Jorge M. Alvarado, both leaders in the church's family history department, hope more Latter-day Saints will give it a try. And 3 generations of women are serving missions simultaneously in the Asia area of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It's an experience they say has brought them great joy and deepened their faith in God's miraculous work.
David A. Bednar of the Mormon Quorum of 12 Apostles is at it again. Apparently he gave a devotional or was presiding at a devotional in Tempe, Arizona for a YSA group. Let's hear one person's experience who was actually there.
Elder Bednar was last night at the Tempe YSA stake, so I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to tell you some fun things that happened last night that were a little strange. So he brought up this example. He was like, do you remember growing up and seeing the ward choir perform in sacrament meeting on church on Sunday? They weren't the most physically attractive or fit people, were they?
I was in the ward choir because my dad forced me to be, so I guess I'm one of the more homely Mormons.
Everyone was like, what did he just say? Like everyone was like, oh, what? To rectify it, he said, that's gonna be you in 10 years, so you might as well get it over with. So he was talking about, like, I invoke, like, we're gonna sing this closing hymn and you're gonna hear it in a way that, like, you've never heard before. I invoke the keys, all this magical whatever.
Oh no, not Bednar in a closing hymn again. Let's see what he does.
Okay, so we sing the song. It's Let Us All Press On. We get through the first verse and he walks up to the podium and he, like, grabs the mic and stops everyone. He's like, you all look miserable. Basically you should smile more comment. Like, okay. So people responded by, okay, let's bring the energy, let's stand up.
Don't stand up. No, don't do it.
Big fucking mistake. Okay, so usually in the church how this goes is when a high-ranking official of the church walks in the room, as a sign of respect, you stand up because they're up and you don't sit down until they're seated, right? This is just like ancient church protocol, respect, whatever. He was so pissed off by the fact that people stood up while he was sat down. He ran. When I tell you, I was sitting right behind him because I was in the choir. When I tell you, he ran to the podium, grabbed the mic, and said, sit down. As a presiding officer, as the presiding officer of this meeting, you should look to that officer to know how to conduct yourself. When they're sitting, you sit. When they're standing, you stand. You don't ignore these subtle things in protocol because they lead to disastrous effects.
Can someone please become Bednar's paparazzo and catch him in the act of this? Pretty please.
He was like, this is how the Catholic Church went from full immersion, like during baby blessings, to only sprinkling.
And now he's going to explain away his power trip.
It's because they were lazy, and now an integral part of church protocol is now lost. Making this whole big deal because some people like chose to stand, and people were so like humiliated. They were so like, oh my gosh, like they like sat down and they sang the song. Everyone was like kind of like, what?
Heads up, Bednar, your power trip has nothing to do with the reason that the Catholic Church sprinkles its babies as baptism instead of waiting until they're 8 and doing a full immersion baptism. Your power trip, it's not about the Catholics. It's about you.
And then, like, when he got up to leave, mind you, this man had so much security.
Maybe because he's afraid people don't like him, because, well, they don't.
I didn't even get into how he snubbed the choir and how he even treated his wife. That is a whole nother video. So we'll see if anyone's interested and wants to hear how a high-ranking official of the church views and treats his wife.
Of course we want to hear about that. Spill, please.
Has Julie Hanks been threatened with excommunication? Has she been summoned to a disciplinary council? The reason I ask is because I saw this post on the Ex-Mormon subreddit. It's a screenshot from Julie Hanks' social media, and it says, I have a big favor to ask you, my friends. If my work has impacted your relationships with the church or your family relationships in a positive way, would you be willing to email a letter of support that I can forward to my leaders? And then it has a link where you can email a letter of support. In the church handbook, there's a very lengthy section about disciplinary councils. It even has a form letter that people send out when they're inviting someone or threatening someone with a disciplinary council. And part of that says, you are invited to attend the council to give your response. You may provide written statements from persons who could provide relevant information. Is that why Julie Hanks is asking for letters to send to her leaders that talk about the positive impact that she's had? If she has been summoned to a disciplinary council, I think this is going to be real bad PR-wise for the church.
I just received the worst Christmas card ever. It's from the First Presidency of the LDS Church, and it informs me in no uncertain terms that I am no longer a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I suppose there was only so many hard truths the leaders of the church could hear before they decided enough was enough. And the response to my 8,000-word appeal is so concise, I can read it to you in this short format video. Dear President Smith, we have reviewed the appeal of Douglas Stilgo, whose membership in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints was withdrawn on September the 26th, 2024, by action of the Presidency of the Thames Valley England Stake. We confirm the decision made by the Stake Presidency. Brother Stilgo is encouraged to return to church membership in the prescribed way. A copy of this letter is being provided to Brother Stilgo. That's all they had to say.
All right, would we legal defense fund choir?
Outside Fairview Town Hall.
We ready?
If you're hearing raised voices.
All right, and if you've got jingle bells, please, let's jingle.
There's a reason.
With boughs of holly follow.
My mom was a great singer. My dad couldn't carry a tune in a bucket.
Season to be jolly.
No, it's not the town choir, but a group that just banded together over a cause.
Santa Claus is coming.
The gathering that looks and sounds like a party, but is also a protest.
And we're not carrying signs or throwing rocks or anything like that. We think this is the kind of protest to have.
The mistletoe.
These Fairview residents are fighting against plans for a new temple for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Our historic water tower is shorter than the temple height that they're trying to bring into this town. It doesn't fit, it's too big.
The first plans called for a 174-foot spire that drew large crowds on both sides earlier this year. Last month, mediation drew up a non-binding agreement with compromises, a 120-foot tower instead.
To me, that is not a compromise.
These residents want the church to honor the city's 68-foot height requirement. Tonight is about raising money for the Legal Defense Fund, in case this goes to court.
They have lots of money, they have lots of lawyers, and we're a small town.
The church did not have a comment on this grassroots movement.
Breaking zoning rules.
Carol songs are about bringing cheer. And for this group, also some change.
Oh, let's do this, let's do this. We hope it brings a proposal that meets our standards.
Scale it back so we can share a blessed silent night. That was amazing! Thank you!
In Fairview.
Across this article in the Wall Street Journal. It's titled, "It Pays to Have Long Hair and a Beard in Utah. Jesus Models Are in Demand." So basically it's about people who are lookalikes of Jesus are being asked to take pictures and family photos with like young kids and I guess like newly engaged couples. Bob Saggers was walking around an indie music festival in Salt Lake City when a friendly stranger approached and asked for his number. Has anyone ever told you that you have a Jesus look to you? The man asked. It wasn't a pickup line. The man's wife was an artist looking for a religious model. I didn't really get that a lot, says Sagers, who is 6'5" with dirty blonde, shoulder length hair and a beard. He says gives Irish and Scandinavian vibes. I make for a pretty tall Jesus. And so it was with that Sagers began a side hustle as a savior. I mean, come on. They put out pictures of what Jesus really looked like. He doesn't look like a 6'5" Scandinavian. Girls who look like Jesus are in high demand in Utah. That's because for a growing number of people in the state, a picture isn't complete without him. They're hiring Jesus lookalikes for family portraits and wedding announcements. Models are showing up to walk with a newly engaged couple through a field, play with children in the Bonneville Salt Flats, and cram in to be in the Christmas card. This is charged. Sagers has posed as Jesus nearly a dozen times. Others have done so far more often, charging $100 to $200 an hour to pose with children. I don't think Jesus would not charge to pose with children.
So you can't complain about someone who does what he said he was going to do. And I agree with him on a lot of policy fronts. I disagree with him on some things. But it's like, okay, give him a chance to do what he said he's going to do and see how it works out.
This is not a traditional cabinet, the nominees. I'm sure you have some feelings. I know you're not going to be voting on them, and I know you're loath to talk about individual ones, but I'm wondering if there's a perception you have of the people he is putting into his administration, which are certainly very different than his first administration.
Well, a very famous book talked about Abraham Lincoln choosing a team of rivals. This is a team of people who are very, very different, extraordinarily different backgrounds, different perspectives on issues, in some cases, I think, even than the president. So an unusual collection of individuals, not the people I would have chosen, but I lost. He won, all right? I'd like to revisit that and win, but I didn't get that chance. And so these are the kind of people he wants around him. He's entitled to that. Now, the Senate has a responsibility to make sure that these people are legitimate, that there's no skeleton that could be an embarrassment to them or the country, and to also determine if they're qualified for the position that they've been nominated to. And I expect them to carry out that responsibility with conscience and diligence.
How do we go forward then? How do we do this? First of all, we're going to need new leadership. We've got new leadership in the Senate coming in the coming year. And I believe that the writing's on the wall, unless I'm just mistaken. It seems to me that new leadership in the House is almost inevitable. If that's the case, I think we need to go outside the box. I think we need to look to a different place. Remember that neither the Constitution nor the House rules require that the Speaker be a current member of the House of Representatives. I propose that they swami. Look, the Doge movement is enormously popular in the House. Just listen to House members who are Republicans. They can't get enough of them, including many of the people who have been part of this swampy process. They praise Doge. Oh, Doge is going to save this. If that's the case, that being the case, given that they all have expressed such affection for Vivek and for Elon, let them choose one of them. I don't care which one to be their speaker. That would revolutionize everything. It would break up the firm. We would now have government of the people, by the people, and for the people, rather than this cartel from the firm, which is systemically corrupt.
Tēnā koe. This episode of Heaven's Helpline talks about sexual assault of boys, but there's not too much graphic detail. Details of support services are in the show notes.
I'm recording. I think maybe you should do a little just improv. So now I'm calling.
Yeah. All right. So now I'm calling. So I understand he's definitely a member of the church. He's a lawyer in New Zealand, and I understand that he's worked for the Helpline. Yeah, so before actually trying the LDS Church's New Zealand Abuse Helpline, there were a few other calls I needed to make first. My producer Adam has the job of pressing record. So let's give him a call and see what he has to say.
We didn't recognise the number you dialed. Please check it and try again.
I found names of some of the people who may be lawyers for New Zealand's Abuse Helpline, and I want to give them the opportunity to talk about their work for the church. But I'm not having 100% hit rate.
Thomas Sutcliffe Barrister here. I'm sorry I'm not able to take your call. I'm probably in court or in a meeting.
Okay, no chat with Thomas Sutcliffe Barrister today. I've got another name here, though. Okay, now calling Josh Shaw. He's represented the church, so he may well have knowledge of the helpline and have worked it himself.
Josh speaking.
Hi there, Mr. Shaw.
Yes.
Hi, it's Murray Jones here calling from the New Zealand Herald.
Oh, hello.
There's a few pleasantries, and I explain I've been investigating the church, and then we get to it. I was wondering if you'd ever taken calls for the helpline.
Yeah, I can't give you any comment without the church's agreement, so I can't give you any on-the-record comments about anything.
Is it true the helpline is answered by lawyers rather than social workers?
Yeah, as I say, I can't say anything on behalf of the church. I mean,
we go round in circles for a bit. I've got questions that need answers. Reporting out of the US suggests that the helpline is all about protecting the church and not about protecting victims. As a member of the church yourself, do you feel that's a fair characterisation?
Yeah, look, I'm afraid saying...
But Josh Shaw isn't budging. In the end, we agree that I'll send a follow-up email.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye. Bye. Okay, well, he was... Same answer for every question, which was no answer.
But it suggests that there's quite a disciplined approach to this sort of stuff. They don't want people just talking off the cuff, which I guess the entire point of the helpline is that they don't want anyone talking off the cuff about anything.
But enough calls to lawyers. It's time to bite the bullet. If I want to find out for sure where the abuse helpline goes, who answers it, and what advice they give to bishops, I'm going to have to call it myself. I'm Murray Jones. You're listening to Heaven's Helpline, and I am literally ringing the helpline.
Tom Sutcliffe speaking.
Hi there, is this the LDS Church Abuse Helpline?
Yes, who am I speaking to?
This is Murray Jones. I'm a journalist with the New Zealand Herald.
Yeah, I'm not talking to you. Okay.
So do all the calls go through to you, Tom? Well, that was pretty clear. So that was Tom Sutcliffe, the barrister whose number I'd already called directly, but only got voicemail. And he's confirmed that he's answering the abuse helpline. But also, we've confirmed that the New Zealand helpline goes directly to a lawyer's cell phone. No switchboard, no please state your Mormon emergency or anything. Just Thomas Sutcliffe, barrister. And you'll remember from the last episode, that's crucially important for the church's helpline system.
The argument is that Mormon polygamy was a form of sexual assault, given our current definitions of how we define sexual assault, which includes forced coercion. A lot of times people think of sexual assault as just a physical manifestation when somebody touches your body incorrectly. No, sexual assault can be exhibitionism that is unwanted. Sexual assault can definitely include forced coercion where people don't know. They cannot give consent because consent is coerced. And some people might confuse this with unwanted sexual consent. I do think that there are times when people will have sex for a variety of reasons, and maybe it's not because they want pleasure out of it. But when you're entering the concept of coercion, we are now past that as well. We are now in the realm of sexual assault. And so what I want to say is that the church doing this story the way they have, they're participating in a story of sexual assault, and they are also combining it with classic grooming and power abuse of power dynamics right now on that page that is current. That is what the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is doing. It's participating in a sexual assault story and framing it so that it's very easy for vulnerable members, especially children, to be groomed and coerced.
Yeah, so first question, how do the Gospels differ in their story of Jesus's birth, which is principally told, I know, in Luke?
Yeah, there are actually only two Gospels that talk about Jesus's birth. That is Matthew and Luke, which are probably the second and probably the fourth Gospels composed. So Luke was probably composed somewhere around, actually, I think probably in the 2nd century CE, so maybe around 110, maybe between maybe 80 CE, 110 CE, somewhere around there. Matthew probably between 70 and 80 CE. And each of them have near the beginning this nativity story, this story of Jesus's birth. And both of them attribute this to some kind of miraculous series of events, but the two stories are not harmonious. They are very different stories about Jesus's birth. And the first thing to say is that these are probably secondary developments. As the story of Jesus is spreading over the course of decades, at some point there was probably a question raised about where Jesus came from, because Mark begins at Jesus's baptism. Paul never says a word about where or how Jesus was born. The relevant part of Jesus's life begins when his ministry begins. And then people started asking questions about the before times. And it was probably related to a concern that the Messiah come from Bethlehem, because we do have things in the Hebrew Bible that suggest this messianic Savior who's expected to show up would come from Bethlehem. And so all of a sudden we have two Gospels that say, oh yeah, it turns out he came from Bethlehem, which is rather convenient. It's Jesus of Nazareth any other time that Jesus' hometown is mentioned. And so many historical critical scholars today, scholars who work on trying to reconstruct who the historical Jesus might have been, would probably say that it's more likely than not Jesus was born in Nazareth. There's nothing we would expect out of the ordinary about his life, and if somebody's from a certain town, that's usually where they were born. But we have in Matthew this story of the mother and father of Jesus being in Bethlehem. Jesus is born. They flee to Egypt to hide out from Herod, who has been tipped off by the Magi that the King of the Jews, the Messiah, is going to be born in Bethlehem. So they flee to Egypt, wait until Herod's dead, and then they come back, and it seems like they want to go back to Bethlehem. But Joseph is warned in a dream. Well, basically, Herod Archelaus, one of Herod's sons, has taken over rule of that area. And so the idea is, you got to go to the north, go into the Galilee. And they just kind of make their way and settle in Nazareth. Just kind of incidentally, they end up in Nazareth. And this part of the story is probably just saying, he was actually born in Bethlehem, but here's how he gets to Nazareth. And this is why everybody knows him as Jesus of Nazareth. And there's the story of of Herod sending out these death squads to go kill all the children born within the last 2 years based on when the star showed up and all this kind of stuff, suggesting that Jesus was probably almost 2 by the time Herod did this, which would mean this is at least 2 years before Herod's death in 4 BCE. So Jesus may have been born around 6 BCE, if Matthew is accurate, and Matthew's probably not accurate. But that's one telling of how this all happens. And then we get to Luke, and Luke's nativity, many scholars think is maybe a secondary addition to the Gospel of Luke itself. In other words, the Gospel of Luke was in circulation because chapter 3 begins how we would expect a gospel to begin. It happened in this year of this Caesar and in this part of the world and under the governorship of this person, and that's how we would expect a gospel to begin. But that's chapter 3 in Luke. So some scholars think that chapters 1 and 2, apart from the little introductory verses at the very beginning, were actually added later. And the Greek is very different in Luke 1 and 2. None of the miraculous events of the Nativity are ever mentioned again in the entire Gospel of Luke. So that may be a secondary addition, but Luke has them living in Nazareth, and he's got to get them down to Bethlehem. And so he says there was this census. Caesar decided the whole world was going to be taxed. They had to go to their ancestral hometown in order to register for this tax. So they've got to go from Nazareth all the way down to Bethlehem. And this is phenomenally problematic from a historical point of view, because Luke explicitly says this is all going on during the days of Herod. But we know when Quirinius, who is mentioned in the text, conducted a census of Judea. That was in 6 BCE. 6 CE. That was a full 10 years after Herod died. That other Herod Archelaus, he was such a moron that Rome just deposed him, was like, get out of here, we're going to do it ourselves. And then they were like, well, we need to know who's living here. Let's conduct a census, and then we can know how to govern this region ourselves. So they had Quirinius in Syria. They said, hey, man, go down to Judea, do a census. So that's when that happened. That was a full 10 years after Herod was dead. Luke says this is happening during the days of Herod. So already we are off the historical charts. There's no reason that they would have anybody go to their ancestral hometown for a census. And there are a bunch of problems with that. I think the biggest one is that would entirely nuke the economy. It's like, all right, taking off for about a month. See you guys.
Everybody move, go someplace else, close up your shop, do this.
Would it cause inflation, though?
Obviously, the biggest thing in church-related things that happened this past week was the first Presidency Christmas Devotional. This is obviously an ongoing tradition for many years now, a long time, to have a broadcast devotional celebrating Christmas. Give me some of your general thoughts, your takeaways from the devotional this year.
Okay, admittedly, I watched this Christmas devotional very attentively because I knew that we were going to talk about it today.
Good.
I used to watch the devotional a lot more when we would actually go to the church to do it. And then since everything kind of went to streaming, it's been a little more difficult. Usually it just honestly, it probably would have just ended up streaming on a computer or something kind of in the background. Really, it was really beautiful being able to just take the time and watch and listen. And the thing that I personally really liked about it was the music. And so it feels almost like upgraded from General Conference because they have the whole orchestra playing and they're playing songs that you love to hear every Christmas. And honestly, it takes me back to my mission because on my mission, I basically only listened to Mormon Tabernacle Choir music. And around Christmas time, I had some of their Christmas albums, and their Christmas albums are really good.
I believe it's Tabernacle Choir at Temple.
Oh, that's right. Kurt's going to get me for that one.
Yeah.
I still call them Motab. It's hard to break that habit. Listening to that music just gives me so much peace.
We had a hot chocolate maker in my house, already a very Mormon thing.
Scandal.
But here's the kicker. It was made by the Mr. Coffee brand, and it had the name Mr. Coffee in raised plastic letters on the machine. My ultra-Mormon father decided we could not even have the word coffee in our home. Avoid the appearance of evil.
Yep.
And scraped off the plastic Mr. Coffee lettering from his hot chocolate maker. Needless to say, he's not handling my family's departure from the church well.
They should tell him and be like, it was the coffee maker. Every morning I woke up and I saw Mr. Coffee Maker making delicious brown chocolatey goodness, and I just had to fornicate.
You didn't scratch it off fast enough. It was there.
If you're LDS and you're listening now,
off.
remove every sign of anything.
The appearance of evil thing is really funny.
That's such a weird concept. Don't just do bad if it looks like you're doing bad.
I don't think it was ever specifically told to me, but I thought it was bad to go into a Starbucks.
I do remember that too.
And you can get not coffee. I mean, you can get a sandwich at Starbucks, but because it was the appearance
but if
of evil
that sandwich
thing.
has a Starbucks wrapper, you got a little coffee
No,
sandwich.
seriously.
Game over.
The aroma of coffee was infused into the sandwich.
When did this start? Was this like immediately into the game? I understand that Providence had a lead. I don't know how quickly they were taking command of the game, but when did the chants start?
Maybe halfway through the first half. Because then I remember after that, it was like right after the chant, they were up by 12 or 13 points, I think, is when that started. And then BYU cut it back down to 4.
Well, you were there and you could see the size of the group that was chanting. How many people do you think were involved in that?
It looked like most people were.
People in that whole section.
Yeah, in the whole student section there. I do respect that after the AD said something and that they and I actually did have a really good interaction at halftime. I went out and I was talking to a group of students and they're like, so are you a Mormon? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, have you guys ever met a Mormon? They're like, no. And I'm like, well, they're probably going to be a little hesitant now, you know, if there are any in your section or at your school, to say something after hearing that. But I think they started to be like, okay, maybe that isn't something that we should we should chant.
Faith and reason are often seen as pathways to understanding, but they're actually opposites. Faith is what people turn to when there's no solid reason or evidence for what they believe. It's a commitment to a belief despite the lack of proof. A stand-in when rational explanations simply don't exist. This doesn't mean that religious beliefs are necessarily false. There may be truths out there that faith traditions point toward, but faith alone isn't a reliable way to discover them. It lacks the safeguards of reason, evidence testing, and logical consistency, which help us filter out error and stay grounded in what's real. If you truly care about believing as many true things and as few false things as possible, then faith isn't a method that you should rely on in your search for truth. Reason pushes us to question, to investigate, to seek understanding with open eyes, while faith asks us to stop at acceptance without proof. For those who value truth above all, relying on reason, evidence, logic, and inquiry brings us far closer to understanding reality than faith ever could.
There's this idea floating around that criticizing someone's religion is rude, and if a believer is nice, then suddenly their superstitious, nonsensical ideologies are off limits. But here's the thing, your illusory metaphysical beliefs are just like any other views. They're ripe for criticism and discussion. Bad ideas and a stunted worldview won't improve if they're above reproach. If you don't want your imaginary supreme being challenged, maybe it's best to keep your nonsensical opinions to yourself. And here's the biggest question that I really need someone to answer. Why can't your fabricated deity just defend itself anyway?
Why is it that ex-Mormons rarely criticize each other? Is there some kind of a silent pact that I'm not aware of? Is there some kind of a blood oath that I forgot? Maybe it's because after leaving the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, ex-Mormons want a new community to belong to. They worry if they start criticizing each other, they'll lose that safe space and be left with nowhere to go. The irony is that members of the Mormon Church are indoctrinated not to criticize their leader. And yet it almost feels like some ex-Mormons are doing the same thing within their own community. For me, there are no sacred cows, no leaders, no prophets who are above criticism. But it does make me wonder, why can't ex-Mormons criticize one another?
Mormon temples are extraordinary undertakings, each one costing tens of millions of dollars to build. But for what purpose? The ceremonies inside are shrouded in secrecy, often involving rituals that outsiders and even many church members themselves find strange or cult-like. And despite these efforts, there's no evidence that these practices have any effect on any supposed afterlife. Beyond the financial costs, temples often create tension in communities. Their design has ties to Masonic traditions, which raises eyebrows. And they sometimes push the limits of local zoning laws. This can lead to protests and even resentment from nearby residents. So I ask you, why support the building of yet another LDS temple? With so many critical needs in the world, wouldn't these resources be better spent elsewhere?
Will the Mormon Church ever end its war on the LGBTQ community? Will it stop trying to strip gay people of their rights? Will it stop discriminating against transgender students on BYU campuses? Will it lift the restrictive policies on transgender members in the pew? And what about the millions or even tens of millions of dollars spent every year by lawyers who are trying to fight to control the lives of the LGBTQ community? When will it stop? When will the harsh rhetoric, the witch hunts, and the demonization end? When will local leaders stop relegating gay Mormons to second-class status? When will the excommunications stop? These questions reflect the growing impatience from gay members and their allies who hope to see genuine acceptance within the church. Can the institution embrace a future where LGBT individuals are welcomed, supported, and treated equally within the fold? At some point, you have to ask, is it ever going to change, or is this just the way it'll always be?
When it comes to nicknames of the church, such as LDS Church, the Mormon Church, to remove the Lord's name from the Lord's church is a major victory for Satan. Satan.
Still here? It's over. Go home.